Yes, adult films. You read that correctly. No clickbait. But damn, this is a beard channel. I promise it is related. I'm going to take you guys on a journey. And I use the term adult films because I know YouTube can kind of be tough on certain terminology when it's controversial. And I don't really have controversial topics on the channel. So I'm not well versed in what you can and cannot say. So the other common names that involve like an X or a couple of X's or a type of video, I'm just not going to say them. I think you and I, as adults, can understand what I'm talking about here. And we're going to talk about how watching those films could possibly impact your beard and the beard growth, where you might be like, dude, there's no relation there. Just hear me out, and I will start with the journey, you guys. I recently did a video, and somebody left a comment and had a string of things that they said, if you do this, it will help your beard. A lot of them were common sense. And then the one that caught my attention said, hey, stop watching these adult films and it will help your beard. And I love to be open-minded. I try not to dismiss anything and listen to everything until proven wrong or till proven that they're onto something. And I just simply said, like, hey man, like genuinely curious here. What do you mean by if you stop watching adult films, how could that help your beard? And he had a one-word response and said dopamine. I didn't know enough about how those films trigger dopamine. I had common sense, right? But I also didn't know the most about dopamine in beards. So I went in with an open mind and started looking into research on the topic. Now, I absolutely despise confirmation bias. That is when someone goes in with a preconceived notion, meaning they believe they know the answer and they're trying to find stuff for that answer. They may even be presented with evidence that goes against what they're believing and they dismiss it, and they'll go down, usually Google search, right, results to find the one that fits them, and then they post that one. They send that one to you. We see it all the time in things like political arguments, right? For example, well, I don't ever want to do that. I'm absolutely okay with being proven wrong or even having my ideas challenged. So I went in with an open mindset to see if dopamine specifically can impact beard growth, beard health, beard anything. And to my surprise, yes, and in a negative way. Now, I hear you and you're like, Dan, just because, and I'll explain how it affects it, but just because dopamine can impact the beard or hair growth in a negative way, doesn't mean that it's just watching adult films. You're right. We get dopamine as the reward system of our human body. When you exercise, you have dopamine released. When you eat good food, you have dopamine released. When you listen to that music that's just a banger, woo, careful with the words here. When you listen to music that you really enjoy, you get a dopamine rush and so many other things. So if getting dopamine from watching adult films is bad for your hair, so is all of the other impacts of dopamine when you get them in other arenas of life. So take that for what it's worth. I am not saying stop dopamine rushes because it will hurt your beard at all. Let me be crystal clear on that. But I do find information interesting. Even if it's not always applicable or life-changing, it's interesting. So how does dopamine impact hair growth? And I am talking hair growth in general. The study that I read, and I looked into others as well, are not specific to beards. But I will say we can infer and say how hair growth happens is, generally speaking, how beard growth happens. Now, there are differences between all different types of hair on our body. We know that. But there are some common denominators in the hair growth cycle, the hair growth phases. The hair growth process is one that is the same from your arm hair, your head hair, your beard hair, your butt and back hair. They're all the same. And what happens, and I will link this study in the description, you guys. If I don't, comment and remind me, but it should be there. What happens when you have a spike in dopamine is essentially you trigger regression in the growth cycle. Now, the hair shaft itself, the actual hair is not impacted, but the hair follicle is. Immediately, it triggers the stop of active growth. It shrinks the follicle, and cuts off the blood flow, which many of you know from watching this channel. Those are the nutrients that we get delivered to our beard hairs that get the growth, that get them not feeling dry and coarse. It delivers nutrients and hydration and so many things that we need. It cuts that off and it activates shedding. So essentially, if you get a spike in dopamine, there is a chance that the hairs on your body are going to actively go into a regression cycle and start to have more increased shedding. Now, is that overall a bad thing? Not likely, right? If you do have that and you do have shedding, there's already a new hair growing. Now, a beard, for example, is going to have hairs of all different lengths. I have some in here that you can't see that just started growing because I had one shed this morning. I also have ones that have been probably 6 to 7 years old, and that's how long they are. Why? Because I know they're like 14 to 18 inches. That checks out with the growth rate. Interesting. How does it pick which ones? Well, it depends on the part of the body. How does it pick which ones from there? I don't know. Genetics, you guys, it truly comes into play with that. So it does activate regression and it does increase shedding. Now, again, I'm not saying that changes anything. I'm not saying watching adult films is bad for your beard. And they did go on to clarify later and said, I just think if you're doing that and you're single, rather than going out and meeting people and engaging with in this case, actual women, that it's better to do that and stuff. And hey, I'm not here to judge. That's not my world at all. But I did find it interesting that there was something with dopamine related to hair growth. So, to wrap this up, I don't think I missed anything on this one. And I guess the one last kind of point that I will make, there is this myth that is out there that if you are abstaining, right, from being able to reach your pinnacle, I guess we could say, that after so many days, your testosterone actually spikes and peaks. And there's a little bit of truth to that as well, but there also is truth to the other side that says, no, there's really no long-term evidence of that happening, which I think is true. It's not a real rule. There's also evidence that right before you reach that pinnacle, there is a spike in testosterone at that moment as well. So it's interesting. Not an expert on that side of things at all, right? I don't study how you get to that. I'm not going to talk myself into trouble right now. But mostly that is a myth. There is nothing that I have found that would show DHT, male testosterone, has some benefit from not achieving your end result, if you know what I mean. So down below, let's keep it as mature as possible, as scientific as possible. Any thoughts? Did you know this? Any reactions? Any logical connections we can make? I just love learning about hair growth. I find it wildly interesting, and the human body is so amazing. Cannot wait to read your comments, you guys. Thank you for respecting the video as it is intended and delivered. If you appreciate it, I have not said it this video, check out the thumbs up. Are you subscribed? It's all appreciated. Dan C. Bearded, please stay bearded and stay positive.